everybody. Sixers lose in Joel Embiid's return to the floor. Joel Embiid looks pretty rusty, but we got a lot of stuff to talk about here. And with me, I got my friend Roy Burton, Rich Hoffman here, hosting the show tonight. And welcome to the PHLY Sixers Show presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Roy?
Rich.
Was not as fun as I think we hoped it would be.
Not quite. I think that titled a bummer. I think that's a pretty accurate description of what we saw tonight.
but we still got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got a lot of people in the chat right now.
Yeah.
So I guess let's just start with Joel. Roy. He did come back tonight. I thought there were some pluses, but there were some real minuses. And also, like, in general, if you're getting that performance from him, you're going to lose, right? It was miles away from the MVP level of Joel Embiid. So I guess let's start with you. What were your biggest takeaways from the first night of Joel Embiid's 24-25 season?
So let's go with the raw stats first. So Joel Embiid, 13 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds, but those 13 points came on 2 of 11 shooting.
Yeah.
Free throw merchant, especially in the first half, 8 for 8 from the foul line. So that part of his game is still there. He's still able to draw foul, draw contact, and get to the line and knock those down. But again, just offensively, just getting to his spots on the floor, he wasn't able to do it.
None.
I mean, he was just people say he was rusty. People say he was out of shape. I mean, whatever words or whatever phrase you want to use on Joel Embiid, that's what it was tonight. I mean, he just didn't have lift on the shots. Wasn't able to get to the basket. I mean, it just wasn't the Joel Embiid that, again, like you said, that we expect to see later in the season. I mean, he just didn't have it tonight.
Not getting to his spots is a great way to put it. I just thought he had zero play strength. He had none of that, and it was mostly on the offensive end. Because we're going to get to the defense. I actually thought he was moving pretty well defensively, but like I don't know how to explain this, guys. Like whether it's rust, Joel being out of shape, just not having the explosion off that knee anymore. That would be the really scary part because then he's not the same player. I don't know exactly what the right answer is. I do know that Joel Embiid, when he comes back, the first game usually stinks. And this was no exception.
No exception.
Right? Like he just was not even close to the level of offensive player that you're usually going to need. I mean, I'm looking just at my notes from the first 4 minutes. I think he had 4 straight bad offensive plays. He got stuck under the rim and threw a ball wildly out to the 3-point line.
Right.
He forced a shot with Josh Hart on him when really like he would put Josh Hart in the basket when he's at his best. He flailed to the rim against Karl Towns and threw up a very weak shot that rightfully did not get called for a foul. And it was just bad. There were a couple times where he got good deep position, and he, like you said, he made 0 field goals in the first half, but he had 8 points because he got to the line. But it just did not look like the guy that we're accustomed to, right? It did not look like the guy where I was actually watching it and I was thinking, like, where's the face-up game? Where's the ball at the elbow?
Right.
And Karl Towns, you're guarding him one-on-one, and it's time to get roasted. I mean, remember last year, I think it was in December, as the Minnesota Timberwolves had the best defense in the league early on, Karl Towns and Rudy Gobert came into Philly, and Joel gave him that work, right? Because he just couldn't guard him. That was nowhere near what we got from the night. There were some post-ups, but just he had no play strength. He got blocked by Karl Towns on one pull-up jumper because Towns had 0 respect for his ability to put the ball on the floor and go by him. So it was a rough night for sure.
Yeah, I think he was trying to just settled for a lot of stuff tonight. And we saw like 5 minutes into the game, put his hand up. He was winded. He had to come out. And people were in the chat are saying that there's a difference between being in shape and being ready to play and being in basketball shape. I mean, you can, go through practice and all that other stuff, but it's a lot different when you have, grown men on another team, coming at you for, 25, 30 minutes a night. And Joel Embiid's probably, like you said, like he's always rusty in these first couple games back off a layoff. I think we're probably going to see something similar to this over the next, couple of games that he plays until he gets back into actual NBA basketball shape. So, so what we saw today, we saw glimpses of good Joel Embiid on the defensive end, but I think it's going to take a little bit more work on the offensive end to see that stuff kind of turn around.
So it's funny, you mentioned the shape. And Stan Van Gundy, who has been the mortal enemy of Sixers Twitter and Joel Embiid in particular, actually was he was a little bit of a Joel apologist tonight, where he said, he's like, look, he is completely out of shape, but it's understandable because the one thing that you can do to prepare yourself to play NBA basketball and be in that shape is to play
NBA basketball. Yep.
I do wish whatever the Sixers would do. Like, it's funny, Roy, when Joel gets ready to play after a decent sized layoff, they have him run up and down the court against like my friend Reggie Redding and a few guys who were really good college players and pro players who were kind of the young assistants on the team.
Right.
And Joel, the point is to get him moving up and down the court, get him in better shape. Even when they do that, he's just not even close to ready to play at the beginning of the year. I just feel like there should be a better answer than that. It's something we've seen before, and I understand that it's going to be different when the bullets are flying out there and you're actually playing real NBA basketball. But yeah, he just wasn't ready at all. And
do we like send him to Delaware and like just have him run with the Blue Coats just for a practice? I'm just just to kind of get reps with actual NBA, athletic kind of guys, like is that an option? Because again, like we've seen other players go down to the G League and get some reps, get some practice time with those guys. Maybe you do that. Maybe you figure something out. I don't know. Again, I think it's a physical thing, and I think that's like you said, I don't think those reps that he gets against those younger assistants are the same. Maybe it's a mental thing. Maybe we're overreaching this. I don't know. Whatever the reason is, every time Joel Embiid comes back from a long layoff, he looks like this. He doesn't look good. So I don't know what the answer is.
And he just was not strong on the offensive end. Like just the post ups.
Yeah.
He
just settled.
He's relying on those too much. And it felt like there were a lot of times he was just hanging out on the right wing, and just kind of doing nothing. I mean, there was that one stretch where Joel was the main guy on the court and Yabusele was playing the four, and the ball just kept finding Yabusele. And I get it. The Knicks were doubling Joel on some of those plays as well. But he just didn't have the force. He just didn't have it. And, hopefully that comes. We have seen him get better in past seasons. But again, I don't know. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. This is a different type of knee injury. And, I think we're all just going to have to wait to see how it plays out. But, look, that's why, Sixers lose by 12 to a team in the Knicks who they don't have Mitchell Robinson, but they had all of their good players, all of their starters, their big guns. The Sixers don't have Tyrese Maxey. They have not played together yet the entire year.
Right. And
Joel looks like that. I mean, a 12-point loss is what you're expecting, right?
Yeah, it's not completely out of the realm. It's like, all right, like that's a reasonable outcome for what especially when we just saw Nick Nurse just throw just random, I don't say random, but like all sorts of lineups out there today. Like you had, Yabu at the 4, then you had, they tried as best they could to kind of stagger the Embiid and Paul George minutes, which makes the most sense. But you had a whole bunch of different lineup combinations out there. Some which worked well, some which didn't work well. So I think again, first game for Joel Embiid with these guys and these kind of random lineup combinations. I think things will kind of figure themselves out over the next 2 weeks once you figure out, okay, these are the 8 or 9 guys I can play with Tyrese Maxey out.
Yeah, and there was one big exception. I thought he had some great chemistry with Jared McCain. But look, and I see a lot of people in the chat saying this, and I agree with this. I just say after that game, he didn't look that sharp. There's a chance that in 2 or 3 weeks he looks great.
Right. We should not have this conversation in 2 weeks.
That's been his entire career. I just don't know because I think this knee injury is different, and we'll see. There is a degree of unknown, but for most of his career, I mean, last year he puts up a stinker against the Bucks, and then 2 or 3 weeks later he was just rattling off insane basketball, just insane. So we've seen it before. Again, I've watched Joel Embiid as much as anybody up close, but so we'll see how that goes. I will say one of the positives from this game, Roy, I thought he was moving well defensively. He didn't have force offensively to cut and drive all the way to the basket.
Right.
I thought first off, that's a hard team to guard because they play 5 out. The amount of times that Joel was asked to hard hedge a screen, because normally they have him play that drop coverage and they have him wait behind the basket for a couple of reasons. Number one, analytically, that's the right way to play. You want your big man around the rim. You will concede some mid-range jumpers, all of those things. And two, it's extremely exhausting to play that way, right? And you need him to have his legs. They asked him to hard hedge. They asked him to switch a lot. And some of that is just that the Knicks are hard to guard, right? Jalen Brunson snakes a pick and roll. All right, then you got to call a late switch because then you're going to be out of the play. I thought he moved really well. I mean, he had the one block on Brunson where he kind of came out of nowhere. I thought he was pretty graceful moving around that way, and that looked different than last year's playoffs. I thought where I thought he was getting from A to B a little bit faster. If he was getting beat it was on those possessions where maybe he had run up and down the court 3 or 4 times
Right,
and he was
right,
gassed or whatever.
right.
So that was a positive. I liked how he looked
I agree.
defensively. And I think Kyle mentioned this during, I think he mentioned it in his observations, which are at allphly.com. I saw the outline of a good defensive team.
Yeah,
Here.
and just to kind of get back to your Embiid point for a second, again, I think, this is why there's a back of my mind. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking some of this might be mental, because when you play defense, it's more instinctive than not. So you're like, like if you have to, hard hedge and kind of, switch and things like that, like, you're just kind of moving off instinct. Like you just kind of go and where you need to be. Whereas offensively, maybe he's kind of going through that mental Rolodex of, all right, how do I get to my spot? You know what I'm saying? Like as far as like physically, how do I physically get to my spot? And he's thinking about the knee and he's thinking too much. And he says, you know what? All right, maybe I can't get there. But that being said, to get back to your defensive point, you can see the building blocks for really good defense on this team. Obviously, Joel Embiid being back helps with that. But I got to give kudos to Paul George and Caleb Martin. I mean,
Caleb Martin did a nice job on Brunson.
He did a really nice job. He made Jalen Brunson work. Jalen Brunson didn't score for the first 16 minutes of the game.
And he missed some open shots that he would normally make, or shots that are just, if Jalen Brunson is making those, which by the way, last April he made all of them.
He made just about
for the most part. But I thought Caleb Martin was tough. He got around screens really good.
Yeah.
Thought he did a nice job scrambling. So yeah, like you saw the outlines of when they played PG, Oubre and Martin together with Joel on the back line. That could be pretty good.
That's a really good, and that was the thing, because like I was, one of the things outside of rebounding issues I have about this team, it's like, all right, if you're going to play Tyrese Maxey and you're going to play Kyle Lowry, like obviously like your perimeter defense is not going to be ideal. So behind them, you're going to have really good defenders. And again, you saw what Caleb Martin can do. You saw what Paul George can do. We'll talk about him a bit more. And obviously Joel Embiid is, he's an outstanding defensive player. So I think whoever you play I don't say whoever, but I think, you can kind of get away with having a less than ideal, defensive, backcourt if you have those 3 guys, with those. Because again, Caleb Martin, I don't know how tall he is, but he plays long. Paul George plays long. Joel Embiid, 7'2". So they can make up you can clean up a lot of mistakes for those your backcourt players.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I think that's part of, if you do want to be optimistic or you just don't want to be super pessimistic, which by the way, if I make a statement either way, people are going to jump on me about that.
Let's be optimistic.
But if you want to be optimistic, I would say, look, it's only November, right?
Sure.
If the Sixers look like this in late March, we'd be talking about a team that's in trouble. But they have a lot of time to figure this out. They're just not as good and not as put together as the Knicks. But they have a chance to be better. I mean, they didn't have Tyrese Maxey tonight.
Right.
They had, Joel Embiid is like 1/5 as good as he usually is.
Exactly.
And you hope that he kind of rounds into form. And, the Knicks who traded, I started to call them the New York Knicks, the Nova Knicks plus 6 picks, because they don't have anything else to trade after
they're pretty much done.
After dealing for Mikal Bridges.
Right.
The Sixers do have some stuff to trade. Like I expect Daryl Morey to make this team better as the season goes on, but they're not there yet. Like they look like a team that is kind of learning how to play with each other. We saw some good things from PG tonight, but it's like, look, if the Sixers, if this thing is going to work, it's going to take time. That's just how it's going to be.
That's the thing. Like Tyrese Maxey is going to be out for a couple of more weeks. Joel Embiid's not going to play back-to-back, so he's not going to play tomorrow. So again, it's going to take some time to build this chemistry. Let's all be honest with ourselves, right? Like this team probably won't be on a decent run chemistry-wise until about Christmas. Because I think it's going to take some time for these guys to kind of figure out how to play together. For Nick Nurse to figure out which lineups work, pretty well. So it's going to take some time. And again, given that we saw a 12-point loss, given everything that we saw tonight against a team that was projected to win 54, 55 games this year in the Eastern Conference, I think it's a loss. There's never such thing as a good loss, but I mean, I think you can take some positives out of what we saw tonight.
They are still, by the way, and this got brought up in the chat, they're 3 games out of third place.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And look,
everything's fine.
So I will say like 2-8 is 2-8, right? Like we can talk all night about, hey, they're going to figure it out at some point. They have a long runway here. That's fine. I mean, they've dug themselves a pretty gigantic hole here. I mean,
how gigantic is the hole though? I mean, it's not that gigantic. I mean, like you said, what you said, was it 3 games out, 3.5 games out?
Yeah, with 11 teams in front of you, but so it's a little bit harder. Look, it is what it is. They just do not have it right now. And the tough thing, Roy, is that they're probably going to play tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Are either of those guys going to play tomorrow night?
Yeah, Embiid's not going to play. I would imagine you have to play. Well, that's the thing. So, because doesn't the NBA have a rule if you sit your stars, you're like multiple stars on the same night, don't you get fined? Isn't there like a fine for that?
Is it a national TV game?
It probably isn't. Yeah, tonight was. So okay, so maybe they get off.
Adam Silver doesn't like those.
Yeah,
he doesn't like.
Yeah, I think you can get away with it with a local game, but yeah. So I think they might be okay tomorrow.
Yeah. So that's where we're at right now. Yeah, I mean, look, they're going to play the Cavs tomorrow night. The Cavs, who
12-0.
Looking at that right now,
13-0. Are they playing tonight?
They have not lost. No, and so they're going to be the more rested team tomorrow night.
Okay.
Good luck to the Sixers. Devon and I will be here talking about that.
Kudos to the Sixers.
We'll be here talking about that game. But yeah, I mean, look, this has been a really rough start to the season. Getting Joel back is a good thing, but it's tough when you dig yourself that level of hole and it looks like, all right, it might be a week or two for him coming back. But as they say, Roy, it is what it is.
Can we talk about Paul George now?
I
think let's talk about Paul George. Paul George had his best game as a Sixer. 29 points, 7 threes, 10 rebounds, 3 steals. We already talked about him defensively with Caleb Martin. I mean, that's if you can bottle that Paul George up and get that, 20 times a year. I mean, obviously you want that more in the playoffs, but I mean that's the Paul George that you need as your ancillary scorer. Especially that's the Paul George you need when Joel and or Tyrese Maxey aren't in the lineup. But the Paul George we got tonight was, I don't want to say almost flawless, but he played an excellent basketball game.
So it was a little bit of a weird game for George because I agree with you. Overall, he was very good. I thought some of the dribble moves he made against really good defenders. OG Anunoby was the best player on the court tonight.
Sure.
But as a really good defender, PG shook him a few times and just made some beautiful threes, man. Like it was just really impressive ball handling in tight spaces. So overall, and we can go over some of the plays because I thought Nick Nurse, who has not had like a very good offensive playbook so far, okay, now he got some firepower back and he's starting to run some better stuff. Didn't really result in like a huge scoring night, and I think that was mostly the players' fault tonight in terms of execution. Like Joel just was not
missed a lot of shots.
Yeah, it was not good tonight. Yeah. But I did think like, okay, I can kind of see the vision and how Paul George can work with these players. That said, some absolutely disastrous decision making from Paul George tonight.
Yeah. Some bad turnovers by a lot of guys, but just some bad. Yeah.
There were 2. I mean, he threw the one entry pass, Roy. Like, he threw an entry pass to Embiid from 3/4 court. Embiid's kind of posting up on the left wing, foul line extended. And he doesn't see that Mikal Bridges is standing right next to Embiid. Easy interception. Yeah. 3 points on the other end. There was another one where he ran into Embiid on a pick and roll. Look, that was bad, but overall, I think you could see the outlines in PG. Okay, we'll get back to PG in a little bit because I thought PG and Jared McCain are your 2 major bright spots from this game.
Absolutely.
But let's pay the bills a little bit and remind you of some of our friends at PHLY. Roy, I am here to tell you about our friends at Empire Today, who can help you with all of your carpeting and flooring needs. You can use empiretoday.com/PHLY for $350 off new floors. Roy, with Empire Today, you get to shop for home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. Empire Today is the best place to get new flooring. So, of course, there are copycats out there, but they cannot beat Empire Today on quality, service, and speed. So they advertise low-quality products that Empire Today simply will not carry. Empire's philosophy is to help you find what you need and not overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. What Empire leaves out of their selection is just as important as what they put in. Shopping for floors at a big box store can be frustrating. You might talk to somebody today who was working in plumbing yesterday, but flooring is all that Empire Today does. They live and breathe flooring. So you can be confident that you are getting honest, upfront advice. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use the promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHLY for details. And Roy, I'd also like to tell you about our friends at CJM Construction. CJM Construction, a local company. If you were thinking about getting a deck in your backyard, CJAM, that is the people you want to contact. They are a family-owned home remodeler specializing not only in decks, but also bathrooms and flooring. Their goal is to help their clients alleviate the challenges and frustrations that come with home remodeling. With a decade of experience, the team at CJAM understands the significance of every decision in the remodeling process and potentially how overwhelming it can be. Their commitment is to guide you through this journey, ensuring a seamless and stress-free experience. Your home transformation should be exciting. And at CJAM Construction, they're here to make it precisely that. Let's turn your vision into reality. So, Roy, you can call into CJAM and get a free estimate for whatever, for your deck, flooring, whatever you might need. And be sure to mention that PHLY customers, mention PHLY, and you can receive a 15% off discount when you call in at 856-329-2933. When you call them about your next home project, see their full selection of luxury vinyl plank flooring and learn more about the products and warranties on their website, cjamconstruction.com/flooring. Okay, let's get into PG because look, that's more the guy that you're looking for, right? And that's a team that has legit wing defense. Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, those guys can guard.
Yep.
And they, obviously Cat is not the best defender on the back line, but I just thought the Sixers ran some really nice stuff for PG, whether it was Kyle Lowry did a great job screening for him. There were a couple plays in here. Looking at my notes right now. He got sprung twice for hoops by Lowry. One was on a flex cut. And then there was another nice set where Lowry back screens for Joel Embiid on a horn set. And that actually sucked in the defense. PG standing wide open in the opposite corner. He makes the three. That's the nice thing about PG, bro. Like unlike some other kind of star level players, if you have him spacing the floor and other teams leave him, he's just going to make a three, right? That's the nice thing about him. But he also had more impressive threes where he scored on a drag screen where he made the three in transition from Joel. So there was like a lot of nice variety from him tonight. I was very impressed with him as a scorer, and that's a good sign because as far as wing defense goes, that's a pretty tough team to score against. Yeah. And he made it look pretty easy tonight.
No, it made it look pretty easy tonight. And again, that's the kind of player that you need, or that's the kind of performance that you need, when you're losing a guy like Maxey, That's the thing, when Joel Embiid's not playing back-to-backs and, probably, not going to play tomorrow and no Maxey tomorrow. Like, you're going to need that kind of Paul George, output. You're probably going to need it, 20, 30, I don't want to say 40, but you're going to need it quite a bit this season because you're going to be a little bit shorthanded with your stars. And again, Paul George, fantastic night on offense, pretty good night on defense, a very good night on defense. I mean, that's the Paul George that you brought in. That's the Paul George that you expected to see when you signed that contract this year. And so, so kudos to him for that performance.
Yeah. Yeah, he was great. When he gets it cooking too, like he's just fun to watch.
It's good to watch. Like it's rare that we've seen a Sixers player, be that fun to watch. Like when they're cooking on offense, like in recent memory. Like Joel Embiid's a little bit different when he's cooking because he's a big man.
It's way different.
Yeah, it's different. Like when you see like a 6'8" guy just pull up, from like 28 and just knock it down and then get a steal and then run out. Like it's just a different. It's just different basketball that I'm not used to. Quite frankly, I'm not used to seeing in Philadelphia.
Well, and it's funny too because you have Joel who, again, like is super nimble and super skilled. Like I don't want to just pin all of his success on his strength and before. I mean,
absolutely skilled.
Really his shooting. I mean, the hang dribble that he has used over the years is just a completely unguardable move. But obviously, one of his great moves that he did not have tonight is that he could just bowl his way to the basket, right? And get fouled and do all those things. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have Maxey, who is learning kind of the nuances of how to score in the mid-range and all those things. Because when he has it going, it's mostly his speed and his shooting that is pretty crazy. PG is like, he'll hit you with like 3 crossovers in a row at 6'8". Yeah, and he just makes it look really smooth. And I thought he made it look really smooth tonight. Again, like some really disastrous passing, and I think that needs to be mentioned because like I think there were probably about close to 8 points the other way that were just the direct result of Paul George turnovers. But like, look, when you have the guy who can score on the wing, can make threes, and also provide good defense. The Sixers did not do what I thought. The Sixers put Embiid on Towns to start the game, and PG was kind of the roamer off Josh Hart, and he got a couple of deflections, but he didn't get the steals. It felt like the Sixers were just like half a step slow on some of these tonight, or just unlucky on a couple of these too. In PG's case, I thought he was just unlucky. Right. But I think Nick Nurse will be able to utilize him as a weapon on the defensive end as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was more of an unlucky kind of situation with Paul George and just in general with that early defense, because the Knicks got out to that early. Was it 8-0 lead, 10-0 lead after Karl Towns hit those 2 threes early? So I think they just kind of got caught off guard a little bit early in the game, but yeah, no, I know we've been moderately negative on this Sixers team early so far tonight, but again, Paul George, he's a bright spot, and and I'm sure we'll talk about him pretty soon. But Jared McCain, another bright spot of what we saw tonight.
He on one of those plays too, he literally just ran into Embiid. Like he ran into Embiid, turned the ball over, and I think it was an Anunoby dunk on the other end. It's
a lot of Anunoby dunks tonight, by the way.
Yeah, easy ones. I mean, they got killed in transition. It's
yeah, that's the thing. It's like they had really good moments defensively, and then they had really good moments where they just fell asleep, and guys like Anunoby be wide open for a dunk, or Miles McBride would be wide open for a three. It's that stuff will come with time, with chemistry and things like that. But it's these are college level mistakes that we saw tonight on some occasions.
Yeah, it was bad, and it probably will improve, but it was bad tonight. That's all. Okay, let's talk about the other major bright spot.
Yes,
dude, Jared McCain looks like a player.
He's a player. He is an absolute player. I did not. Well, here's the thing. You know what? These last couple of weeks, he's kind of been thrown in the deep end of the pool. Guys have been hurt, guys have been injured, guys have been suspended or whatever, however you want to phrase it, and he's swimming. I mean, he's been able to swim. I mean, it's never a good thing, when guys are out and you're playing shorthanded. But the one benefit, or one of the few benefits that we've seen from these past couple of weeks with all these guys being out, is that Jared McCain's had to play significant minutes, and he's earned every single bit of this playing time he's got over these last couple of games. He's been fearless. Hasn't played like a rookie. And they said during the broadcast that he said that the game's kind of slowing down for him. And you can kind of see that over the last couple of games.
Couple things. And I honestly think he should probably be getting 25 minutes a game at this point.
He has to.
And Nurse got him in early in the second half. I think he got him in.
He was the first sub.
Around the 7-minute mark. Yeah, and he got him in. I think that was because Oubre was in.
Oubre had 4 fouls.
Was in foul trouble. But I also think Nick should have that urgency regardless of the game situation, because he's good.
He's good.
I'll tell you one thing too. He's the next guy who's going to run the 2-man game with Joe. We've been bagging on Joel's offensive game. He did set some really good screens. I know. I guess part of the reason is that he has set the bar so high. I feel kind of ridiculous complimenting his screening.
Right.
That sounds like you're a Jazz fan complimenting Rudy Gobert scoring 4 points, but he got our guys open with screens.
So many screens, right.
Yeah, or whatever. Joel really set some good screens in dribble handoffs for McCain. McCain had acres of space.
Yeah.
On
that first three he hit, on that screen, like Jared McCain again, the 2-man game between, you saw some of the same stuff, similar things that you saw when Joel and Tyrese Maxey, the 2-man game between them. Again, I always had concerns about McCain and Maxey, playing together, being able to play together. But again, given what we saw tonight with the chemistry with Joel and Jared McCain, I have less concerns tonight than I had, 4 hours ago, I'll say.
Noob in the chat, what do we think of McCain's ceiling? I thought he would be good, but not this good. He's the 4th best player on the team right now. I don't know what his ceiling is, Noob, but I will say, he is wildly surpassed my expectations.
Sure. Yeah. I didn't think he was
I thought if he was going to be good, it was going to take Maxey wasn't good at this point.
No. I didn't think, well, first of all, I didn't think he'd get enough time. As a rookie, I didn't think he'd have enough time to carve out, kind of a niche for himself on this team. But it's, we're a couple weeks into the season, and it's you have to play this guy. And yeah, how good can he be? I don't know. I know people in the chat, they're he needs to start. I mean, I don't think we're there yet, but I mean, We can have that. We can probably have that conversation, in a month. I mean, if Kyle Lowry plays like he did tonight, I mean, we can probably have that conversation, within the next couple of weeks because Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey. I mean, I don't think you're losing anything, or you're probably getting. Well, you're definitely getting a lot more if this is the Kyle Lowry that we're going to get.
Kyle set some good screens, but yeah, outside of that, he did struggle. He just didn't make his threes tonight either. There were a couple plays too, and I like that McCain. He got sprung free by Joel on dribble handoffs, going both directions too. The one you mentioned, they ran a delay set where they threw the ball to Joel at the top of the key. Joel runs the kind of staggered dribble handoff, and McCain is wide open, and he shoots a 3 off of that too. It's rare in that 2-man game. I mean, that's some Redick type stuff already from a 20-year-old. Like Seth would never do that. Right. And then there was another one where he set him up, and it was from the left corner. I think that is where McCain is really going to eat and JJ would always do this too. You want the ball on the left side for a right-handed player, so you're going to your right hand. You're a much more effective driver going that way. And he got into the rim, like he got to the rim on that play too. I mean, the dunk. He didn't make the dunk, but the fact that he even tried that on OG Anunoby, he also got up way higher than I thought. Maybe he just got his steps right on that one. I didn't really know. Like
sometimes you feel bouncy, you know what I mean? Sometimes I haven't felt that way in like 20 years, but I mean sometimes when you're that age, you just get a little boost of energy, and he almost put it down on Anunoby.
I thought that was great. Like that was amazing. I mean,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but again, like it just shows that he just doesn't have any fear. Like it's like, you know what, I'm out here. I'm just going to play my game, and like like you saw the third quarter, he was like, you know what, like we needed a boost at this point. Like he comes off the bench, scores 7 of the Sixers 9 points at the end of that third quarter. Like, noob in the chat, he's fearless. I mean, that's the first word I put down in my Jared McCain summary for tonight, fearless, because that's the way he played tonight.
The worst possible. We're getting on him for his TikToks, and I think what this shows is that the TikTok, you can do those TikTok dances and still be completely. You just have no conscience and not be afraid of. Right. It's like he almost. He doesn't really know what he's into at this point, like he's just, he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And he's playing great. I'd also say too, like, in addition to the no dip 3-pointers and the skill level, cause like, let's be real guys. Like he blew by, and again, some of them were on ball screens, Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby on different times tonight. Right. If you would have told me this guy in Summer League was doing that, I would have said, no way. Are you kidding me? Yeah. He made Campaign, which again, Campaign. I love Campaign. Great energy, but got to the rim, got the one on him as well. But I would say even more than that, he does little things, Roy. Like he crashes in from the corner and tips the ball to Andre Drummond for an offensive. Like he should not be big enough to be an impact rebounder, but there are times where he sticks his nose in there and makes those plays. Joel, did he get the N1? No, he didn't get the N1, but there was one time where Jared McCain flashes to the free throw line when Joel is getting fronted, throws him the high-low over the top. Right. Now, normally, the Sixers have been throwing high-lows to Joel for years. Normally, that's like the power forward's job because you want somebody who can see over the defense. But Jared McCain did it well, put it in the right spot, one of Joel's 2 field goals. Mm-hmm. I'm really impressed with this kid, and it's at the point where he might need to start.
Yeah, I mean, he plays within himself. He's always in the right spot, like you mentioned. Like he rebounds well for his size, or is at least in a good position to rebound well for being a guy who's 6'3". Yeah, I mean, again, we talked about the 2-man game between him and Embiid. The only hesitation I would have to start him is that he provides a really good spark off the bench, and maybe you don't want to lose that with the second unit, but I mean he's played well enough that you need to have that conversation pretty soon, because his last 3 games, like you talked about him blowing by really good defenders tonight. Like the Hornets game, he was doing similar things, but it's the Hornets. I mean they stink. So you're like, all right, well maybe it's the Hornets. Maybe it's just bad defenders. He did it again tonight against, like you said, against some really good defensive players. So I think what we're seeing is pretty real with Jared McCain, and hopefully this continues.
Yeah, he's great. I am a huge fan of him. He seems like a great dude. Honestly, he's tough, man. Okay, so that's good. Roy, I guess that's the one thing I would say is that you have Jared McCain, right? Mm-hmm. You have Yabusele. Like, you have guys that have been asked to do a little bit too much, and because the foundation is so shaky because of the injuries, because of the rust on this team, that's not leading to winning basketball at this point.
Right.
But you can see the outline of those guys contributing. Good team. Like, I think Jared McCain is only going to get better. Yeah, he's great. I'm a huge fan of that dude. Just seems like he has a good perspective about life, all those things. So yeah. So okay, another thing we were looking at tonight is Gershon Yabusele.
Yeah.
Nick Nurse said he was going to play at the 4. I thought it looked.
He played at the 4. He was there as a 4 when another big was out there. That happened.
There was a really rough stretch. I think it was end of third quarter, early fourth quarter, where the ball just kept finding him. And the Knicks, like early on in that game when he was playing the 4, OG Anunoby was just, he didn't even care about him. Right. And that's a little bit of the worry with Gershon at the 4. Like, there were a couple times he crashed and he kind of ran into Joel for rebounds. That just felt unlucky.
Right.
So he did some good things. There was, I did feel, I did have a smile when there was one play where he got a stick back from the 4. Josh Hart did not box him out. And Josh Hart, who has been running down rebounds on the Sixers for a couple years now. Yeah. And Yabusele just beat him in the spot. And all right, good. The Sixers finally have a guy who can fight back a little bit on that front. But I did think you saw maybe a little bit of the limitations on the on Yabusele at the 4. It might have just been a bad game. And also, I think I wonder too, like, once Joel gets cooking, once he starts playing better, maybe those shots start to become a little bit easier. But yeah, he struggled a little bit tonight.
I think it's a bad game. Like, initially, I'd written down in my notes, I was going to say, it looks like the Monstars took all of his talent. But I think the more the game kind of progressed, I think it was just a bad night with Yabusele. And again, I think it's just a chemistry night. I mean, we're talking about it in the chat. I mean, I think we just need to figure out, Nick Nurse, need to figure out these rotations, need to figure out who can play well with each other, like who can play well off each other. Like, where does Yabusele need to be when Joel's out there? Where does he need to be, when Andre Drummond's out there? And again, that's going to take some time. It's going to take a couple of weeks. It's probably going to take until Christmas. But again, like, as long as you see some kind of incremental steps to that, to get to that point, then I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, look, and the ancillary guys struggled tonight. Kyle Lowry, 1 for 5, 0 for 4 from 3. Kelly Oubre, I thought he was going to play a better game. He did not. 1 of 6, 0 for 2 from 3. Yabu, 1 of 7.
Nice block, though. Had a nice block.
1 of 7. Jeff Doughton got the minutes from the other night. Nick Nurse riding the hot hand, struggled a little bit tonight. That's okay, Jeff. And like, look, I think you got nice performances from McCain, from PG, and from Caleb Martin, but the rest of the guys struggled. And when Joel Embiid struggles this much, that is going to be a loss. What did was there anything else that stood out to you about the defense that the Sixers played tonight? Because, I mean, the Knicks shot 9 of 31 from beyond the arc. I thought they did a pretty good job. Like Joel had a bunch of shots that got hit in his face. I was like, man, that's a nice shot by Deuce McBride. Like Joel's got a hand in his face. Yeah. He's making those shots. Josh Hart, the shots he made at the end of the half, like that long 2, that's just like, I don't know. Those are, you got to shake their hand, those type of plays.
They did a pretty decent job. I don't really have any specific other thoughts defensively. Again, just want to bring up from what we talked about pregame. It's like rebounding. They got killed on the glass. Well, they got killed. They got significantly beat on the glass last night. And that's with Paul George, grabbing 10 rebounds. And obviously, Joel Embiid, minutes restriction, lack of mobility. He's not going to be the same, rebounder as of yet. But I mean, again, like the Knicks aren't super big, and you still got beat on the glass by 10. I think it was like 50 to 50 something, 54 to 44. That's still going to be a problem. It's going to continue to be a problem, but I'm not sure how you fix that.
Yeah, and I mean, right, as much as we can talk about the rebounding, because the Knicks they had a decent rebounding game. They definitely out-rebounded the Sixers. I mean, the Sixers' main problem is they're just not creating good offense, And whether they created good offense or they're shots, like I think they're still the worst shooting team in the league in terms of effective field goal percentage, which is crazy. When they had Embiid and Harden, they were basically the best three-point. I mean, it's definitely a pretty big shock, and that's been the story for these first games, and they're gonna have to figure it out. But hopefully, when Joel gets better and Tyrese comes back, then they can develop a little bit of chemistry and improve. Why don't we talk about our friends and pay some bills here?
Okay, Rich, time to talk about our friends over at Coors Light. Now, between work, social media, and the choices life throws our way, we're all a little bit more worked up than usual. Coors Light celebrates rising above and choosing a chill mindset. Why not turn the rained out barbecue into a karaoke house party? Or after a tough loss like the one that we saw tonight, why not settle with an ice cold peace offering? Make the choice to choose chill and then reach for a Coors Light. It's a mountain cold refreshment. That 13-0 Knicks run to start the fourth quarter wasn't exactly what I expected to see after the Sixers made their own 7-2 run to end the third quarter. That, ladies and gentlemen, was a time that I should have chosen chill. If I had thought about it earlier, I'd have gone to my fridge here and grabbed a refreshing Coors Light. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smooth finish. Coors Light is crisp, mountain cold refreshment, and when the mountains on the label turn blue, you'll know that it's cool as the Colorado Rockies. When you embrace a chill mindset, it's a good time to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Let's also talk about our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. When you download the app, be sure to use the code PHLY365 when you sign up. Sign up today to join more than 90 million users worldwide at our favorite sportsbook. And unlike other sportsbooks, Bet365 live streams 780,000 events each year, so you can watch the game in your browser on your phone that you bet on earlier in the day. Now, Bet365 didn't just pioneer live in-game betting, but they also offer the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. For you basketball fans out there, and I'm sure there's a bunch of you guys out there watching right now, Bet365 offers the basketball early payout offer for both NBA and college basketball. So with that offer, if you're a winner and your team goes up, you are a winner if your team goes up by 20 points with an instant payout on straight bets, and parlay selections are marked as winners. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Again, use promo code PHLY365 to sign up, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Again, download the Bet365 app and use promo code PHLY365 to get $150 in bonus bets when you just bet $5. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary with Bet365.
All right, Roy. I'm reading Derek and Kyle's tweets right now. Nick Nurse says that he is not sure about Joel Embiid and Paul George's availability.
Ooh, I'm sure.
For tomorrow's game against the Cavs. They'll evaluate both of them tomorrow morning to get a better picture of if they'll play in both games of the back-to-back. I mean, I think Joel kind of already spilled the beans on that.
I'm sure
about
one. Joel Embiid's availability. I think Paul George probably. If I had to guess.
Yeah, I wonder. Do you think they're just gonna punt the game though? They're just like, yeah, they're not gonna beat the Cavs on a bunch of rest. I mean,
like you mentioned
it's so ridiculous to be punting games though.
Yes, the thing, like you mentioned, like they've kind of dug themselves a little bit.
You're 2-8,
right? Like you're 2-8. Like you kind of got to get a dub at some point. Yeah, I think Paul. If I had to guess, I think Paul George plays tomorrow. I think Joel Embiid does not. We'll find out tomorrow morning for sure. But yeah, I think you got it. I mean, imagine that game tomorrow without either one of those guys.
Roy, the tough thing too is like they're again, if Joel starts to play better, then okay, then we can probably change the subject a little bit here. I'm looking at the schedule. You got Cleveland, you got at Orlando. I know Paolo is out, but they've been treading water. They're actually, I think, at 500. At Miami, at Memphis. All right, Brooklyn at home. Should probably win that one. Clippers at home. Got spanked by them. It was it's tough sledding. Man.
Not the easiest slate coming up.
There's just not a lot of easy wins for this group right now.
It's not. Yeah,
and that's been one of the cool things about about Joel Embiid, the Joel Embiid era, like as a regular season player, when they've played bad teams over the years, like he makes sure that he gets you out of there in 3 quarters.
Right. Exactly. Like,
And we're just at the complete opposite end of the spectrum right now, where, the other night, I thought they drastically outplayed Charlotte. Now, again, they're without Joel and Tyrese, and yet they still have to win in overtime and kind of a miracle game where Jared McCain plays well. It's just, it's hard to come by wins right now. So, look, Joel's going to have to improve pretty quickly here because that is what makes them the team that they have been over those past years. Like the term floor raiser, he adds to their baseline level in a way that probably nobody else besides Nikola Jokic in the entire league does.
I agree.
So we're going to need it.
Yeah, and especially, again, I don't know what the latest is with Tyrese Maxey, but especially with Maxey out probably these next 2 weeks, like you're going to need every little bit of that floor raising that Joel provides you because, again, like it's tough sledding. I mean, obviously the Cavs game, but, like you said, the Magic, like the net, not the Nets, but I mean, like there's some really tough games coming up on that stretch, and you don't want to, you don't want Tyrese Maxey to, to come back and you're 3-11, you know what I mean? Like because again, like the East is bad, but at some point, like you need to start getting some wins. I mean, you're not going to be was the Hawks last year who got into the playoffs with 36-46 record. That's not like you don't want that. You don't want to be in the play-in game with 40 wins. We play in tournament with 40 wins. This team.
Yeah. I do see a comment in the chat. Embiid is nothing like Jokic. I agree. As a postseason player, that is true. As a regular season player, man, I think he is. I get it. He's not as durable as Jokic, but
he can elevate a team.
I don't know. Do you watch this team when he doesn't play? Like they are really rough. I don't know. He's been quite a floor raiser over his career. Roy, I'm going to vent about something that's kind of a smaller thing. Nick Nurse Daryl Morey needs to take the challenges away from Nick Nurse. He stinks at that, Roy.
Not a good night for Nick Nurse.
So again, like he uses these challenges that are the equivalent of challenging like a 5-yard gain in football in the first half. Just something that is just so low upside. And obviously, so he takes away. They missed the goaltending call. They were really struggling to call goaltends on that side of the field. Okay, fine. You want to take 2 points off the board because Oubre got to that ball first. Fine. That was a good challenge.
Right.
But then you only have one challenge left, regardless of whether you get it or not. And to use it on a Caleb Martin charge against Jalen Brunson where, some people are saying he's moving. I don't know, man. That just feels like the type of play where you're just like, yeah, you can complain to the ref or whatever, but I'm not using my final challenge on that.
Right. You just got to eat that. Yeah, it was very Herm Edwards-esque with those challenges tonight. I mean, it's like there's a time and a place for challenges, and that charge call, like we were like all of us were like, what's going on here? So, yeah, I agree. I think Nick Nurse probably needs to kind of rethink. Isn't it? There's always like how there was. I think with Nick Nurse, there's the guy who says like maybe you should challenge. There's always a guy who says maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. Who reviews the replays on your bench? There should be a guy who just kind of pulls them like, hey, don't.
Because some of these he makes, and by the way, if that is in fact what he's doing, I don't know exactly. Like Brett Brown, I know he had I think it was John Bryant behind the bench.
Was it Brett Brown? Okay, I knew some coach. I thought it was Nurse.
It was John Bryant who just just listened to John Bryant, and John Bryant let him know, yes, no, maybe,
don't worry
or whatever. Yeah. I don't know if Nick Nurse is doing that. Then the guy on the bench needs to be replaced. Yeah. Whoever is the one.
We need a challenge guy. If he's not there, we need a new. If he's there, we need a new one. If he's not there, we need one. All right, because whoever's there right now, whoever's making a decision right now, is terrible at it.
Whoever's doing it right now is just frustrating. So yeah, it's been that type of season, Roy. And so obviously the Sixers now they have lost their first NBA Cup game this year.
That's right. Jeez.
I don't know, the point differential, that's a big thing at the end of the game.
It is a big thing. Yeah, point differential is a big thing.
You got to be careful with that because on the last night, if you're a 3-1 team and your point differential is in good shape, you can sneak into Las Vegas for the final 8. But they're going to have to blow out some teams the rest of the way.
Well, here's the thing, though. Again, in the East Group A for the NBA Cup, there's also the Magic, the Nets, and the Hornets. The Sixers just beat the Hornets, and they can probably do so again. The Nets are the Nets. They are who they are. So a little bit easier when it comes to NBA Cup games for the Sixers for the rest of the way. Yeah. This is the hardest one you have. So,
by the way, with this NBA Cup too,
yes,
I know the floor is better than last year.
Yeah,
it's still it's
a terrible. I apologize for everything I said in the pregame show about that blue floor. I thought it looked okay. It was horrible on television. I don't know how it looked in real life. It is a terrible floor. It's awful. I don't. Did you see the Celtics floor, by the way, by any chance? That green floor looks like graph paper in Boston. At least the Sixers do not have the worst NBA Cup floor. Again, Adam Silver. I have a lot of ideas about a lot of things, specifically the NBA Cup, specifically the All-Star Game. Please, at PHLY Sports, let me know. I can get in touch with you. We can work these things out. Get rid of these floors. And I have a lot of ideas. Let me just put it like that. That Celtics floor is the worst, though. Horrendous.
This is supposed to be an elevated competition. These games are supposed to be special, right?
Yes.
They're supposed to be higher intensity than the other games. And thank you for that, Bree.
Thank you, Bree. Look at that. That's like graph paper. That's like,
I just don't like looking at that, and it makes watching the game on TV worse.
Like the fake parquet outline kind of thing with the no. It's Aaron, my eyes want to file a class action lawsuit. I think we all deserve miniature NBA Cups for having to watch these games. They're distracting. They don't serve a purpose. There's no point. Just put the picture of the trophy in the middle at center court. What are we doing? Unless you want to auction these off on Fanatics. I mean, there has to be some reason behind these floors. I don't get it.
Let's get to some super chats, Bree.
Let's do it.
Davon, aka Schoolboy Beats, thank you for chiming in. Bad when Tibbs has a deeper rotation than Nurse.
Well, that was the thing we talked about in pregame. Tibbs
went 6 deep basically.
Yeah, Tibbs they've been running, all 5 starters this year, averaging more than 33 minutes a game, for the Knicks. That's Tibbs by usual. But you said they went 6 deep tonight?
Yeah, Jericho Sims played well. He obviously was.
I thought he was
better than Drummond. Matt Ryan, Campaign,
Sims played. Got a little bit of run, right? Oh, 9 minutes.
But again, even in this game, you have
it's 60. Good Lord.
all 5 starters play over 35 minutes.
Right.
Miles McBride plays 26, and they're thin. That's the way Tibbs is gonna do this. I thought they would run out of steam by the time the playoffs started last year. As it turned out, they ran out of steam after the first round series. Yeah.
Right, yeah,
but they did a great job. They were the fresher, better team in that Sixers series. So got to give them credit. That's the way Tibbs rolls. And your point, Davon, every time I watch Andre Drummond, I'm just very underwhelmed.
Yeah.
He just part of the reason, Roy, too, is just Andre Drummond, get back on defense.
Yeah, just do be active. It seems like, I don't know.
You're gonna play 20 minutes a game here, or even less.
Yeah, give me 20 hard minutes. Give me 20 hard minutes. You say, even less. Give me 18 hard minutes. You can body up a man on defense. He doesn't seem like he plays with a lot of urgency. On defense. I don't know. I'm very underwhelmed as well by Andre Drummond.
Yeah, and then you're going to Yabusele and McCain. Part of the problem is, as Davon said, is when you're not getting really anything from Kyle Lowry and Kelly Oubre, then you do seem like a thin team. And look, that's going to be on. Daryl Morey is a big fan of saying that a lot of he doesn't really say executives. He says fans are more interested in having a finished team earlier in the year than he is. And look, there are some downsides to that strategy. I thought in 2022, great trade for James Harden, obviously getting him for Ben Simmons, regardless of how the Harden experience ended, that was a good trade.
Sure.
But that team didn't have a chance at the end of the year because they just didn't play together enough, right? So I think there is a little bit of a push and pull, but I do think the Sixers, after keeping their powder dry for a few years here, are going to have a chance to make a legit move and not a Buddy Hield one again. Although honestly, watching Buddy Hield in Golden State, I wish the Sixers had that level of player last year.
Yeah.
Okay. We also have Citizen X. At this rate, what is our predicted win-loss? Well, we are 10 games into the season.
I was going to say, let's not use this rate because this is a terrible rate.
So the rate, I believe, is 16 games. Citizen X.
Yeah. 2-8 after 10. Yeah, that's not.
And if they win 16 games, then they are very much in the Cooper Flag.
Shout out the Cooper Flag.
Because I imagine they would have one of the worst 2 records. And as Kyle has mentioned. Kyle mentioned that they're obviously not going to tank because they're not going to tell Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George that they're going to tank. And also, as Derek has pointed out, they're not going to tank because if it's outside the top 6, they don't get the pick.
Right.
Yeah, it's the old Al Horford trade from a few years ago. If they did stay on this pace and told Paul George and Joel Embiid, then they would be in the Cooper Flag Derby. I believe Cooper Flag is playing in the Champions Classic tonight. I don't know how he's doing. I've had a lot of fun watching that guy. He's a fun player.
Nice little player.
Our guy Ash chiming in with the super chat. Thank you, Ash. Guys, I love the 76ers at full strength versus this Knicks team. Just not worried about them. Nurse should pair McCain with Joel a lot. Ash, I mean, like, I can't say that I wouldn't be worried about this Knicks team at this point, but I agree that, like, the Sixers have chances to get better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Sure.
if you get Maxey and you get a healthier Embiid, they have a shot. I mean, Joel, as gaudy as his stats were in that playoff series last year, he just wasn't healthy at all. And that's what the hope is, right? Mm-hmm. He wasn't healthy in that series. He was either rusty or not healthy tonight. I don't know what the right answer is, but he was not good tonight. He was obviously a much better player in that series than the night. If you get that level of player and PG and Maxey and a deeper rotation, then maybe, Ash. And I think the good news, again, we cannot stress this enough. It's only November. They're going to have to start winning some regular season games at some point. But the record matters at this point, and you're going to have to eat all of these losses. But they have a lot of time to actually raise their level and start playing their best basketball at the end of the year. I think we all have been through enough really strong regular seasons for the Sixers to know it can go the other way as well. So they got a lot of time here. And I agree with you. I think McCain and Joel, that's been a formula. Joel with small guards who can shoot off the dribble, make some plays, has been really good over his career. And McCain has that skill set. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, again, a healthy, good chemistry, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid. I'll put those guys against anybody. And I'll put those guys against, as you mentioned before, like the team who I think, knock on wood, maybe this is the year they run out of gas in April and May. Because if you keep running these guys out, like if you keep running 6-man rotations, from like November to April, I mean, like you're probably not going to have a lot in the tank. Today I think was an off day for some of these other guys. So I'm not going to say that this team is less deep than I thought they were. But I mean, you still have more guys that you can play in a playoff situation than you've had in recent years. So I feel a lot more confident about this team in the playoffs, and I will feel a lot more confident about this team, in January, February, once they're able to build some chemistry together.
Let's say on the current roster, let's include Maxey too, obviously. Sure. How many guys do you feel confident about are going to be like rock solid playoff rotation players? Right. I think the 3 stars, obviously. McCain, we'll see, but he's trending in that direction.
Yeah, but so I'd put McCain in that bucket. I'd put Caleb Martin for sure in that bucket.
Yeah, right. He's a playoff gamer. He's kind of a classic playoff riser where even in Miami, some of his regular seasons were uninspiring. He, in the big games and the games that matter, for sure. Yeah.
So I think those are the guys. I think those 5 guys are the I don't say locks, but like those are the guys who can confidently put in that one bucket. And then I think there's obviously questions with Kelly Oubre, there's questions with Kyle Lowry, Drummond, and Yabusele. I think Yabusele is probably trending towards that good side as well. But again, it's small sample size theater.
So Kelly has been disappointing this year. I will say, and I've been on Kelly. I think a lot of people in the chat were not happy when I was talking about some of his mistakes last year. I thought Kelly was a gamer in last year's playoffs. Wasn't perfect, but he had to play heavy minutes. He had to guard Jalen Brunson in a lot of those games. I was pretty encouraged by him. Now, he's got to get back to that level. He's a long ways away from it right now. Had a frustrating game. I felt bad for him on the one play where Towns ran into him, and then Towns throws his head back and hits Embiid. That seemed like kind of bad luck. Yeah. It seemed like not everything is going Kelly's way at this point. But look, he's got a shot. Yabu's got a shot. But they're going to need a couple of these guys to hit. They're probably going to need Daryl to acquire a couple of these guys at the deadline.
So let me ask you a quick question. So we're talking about and in the chat as well, talking about different things that could happen at the deadline. Your primary desire, need at the deadline for this team would be what? Is it a rebounder? Is it a shooter? Is it?
I think a 4 that can shoot it a little bit. Probably.
Okay, somebody off the bench who can just kind of be that shooter. I'm trying to think of a name.
I wouldn't mind another guy who could handle just like a third or fourth guard. Although those guys are expensive now.
Yeah.
Those guys are hard to get. I know it's always easier to just say the archetype. And real quick, as we are approaching the final hour, we appreciate all of you that have been watching on TV. If you're not on YouTube, head over to allphly.com for the show. We're about to go over the hour time. Yeah, so I think that's probably what I would like, Roy. I mean, I'd like more shot creation, but I'd also like a little more size, a little more rebounding, those type of things. Maybe Yabu provides that as well. But I think the good news is that we have a few months. Are they here, Bree? Great. But we do have a few months to see what exactly they need. Like, again, we're making these judgments based off just some very incomplete performances.
Very incomplete performances.
They need a lot of stuff.
Incomplete roster.
Yeah. Okay. So I think our guys are here from the arena. Just Kyle. All right.
Just one guy. Derek is off doing important video work for the gang right now. So you're stuck with me, fellas. What's up?
Putting in a big shift. Okay, Kyle, did Embiid talk yet, or is he taking forever?
Yeah, well, yes, as you know, he likes to take his sweet time. He not only got to watch some of the Warriors game, but spent some quality time with Bub in the corner hanging out. So, but yes, we did indeed get to talk to him, and we got I'd say probably like 5-6 minutes of time with him. So decent amount, but nothing crazy.
That's not big.
Big headlines coming out of that. He and Paul George both did not rule out playing tomorrow. Now, that doesn't mean that they will play against Cleveland. In fact, I would say I still slam the doubt button for both of them, especially Joel after the extended absence. But he made I hear a bell ringing over there.
That's the doubt button, Kyle.
Yes, I think that works perfectly. So Joel said something to the effect of, it's going to depend on the medical guys. Said he wants to play, like he knows their record. Cleveland obviously is absolutely rolling right now. It's a good litmus test game if you can have a semi-healthy, coherent team out there. And he joked, he was like, I know I said I'd never play back-to-backs, but I'm also a troll, so you never know.
Jeez.
So that's where we're at right now, fellas. So I can't say whether he will or won't, but that's where we're at.
So, okay. So obviously Kyle, well below his normal standard, but also we have seen him struggle in open games. Now I think that was a little bit different. And then I thought he was moving pretty well defensively. I saw that you noted that in piece. He just had no play strength on the offensive end. I mean, it was like he was getting pushed off his spot. The Knicks were daring him to drive. He couldn't do it. So that's concerning. I don't know whether that's something that'll get better in a few weeks. I've seen him play much better, or this is going to be more of an issue moving forward. What was his take on why he struggled so much offensively tonight?
Yeah, I think so. From what it sounded like coming from him, it was that he still is not at that trust level that he needs to be with the knee, right? And I think it did show up a lot more. I was glad you pointed it out, Rich, earlier tonight, where I think his recovery speed on defense was good. He made some, he's defending out, like coming up to the level, like they didn't just have him sit by the rim all game, and they mixed some coverages up. And so I thought that was hugely encouraging, because I didn't think we were going to get to see things like that for at least a couple weeks, right? I thought they'd be conservative. He wouldn't move too much. So that was great, but that was hard to square with, he's not even really using the jab step. He's not even really trying to go at guys. And he alluded to the fact that it's just, he doesn't know when that'll come. He believes it'll come, the trust to be able to just do everything, but it just isn't there right now. And that lowers the margin for error on a lot of the shots that he lives on, right? Because the reason he can have as much success as he does as a semi-stationary guy at the elbows is because those defenders always have to keep the threat in the back of their mind that he might get to the rim, and they might have to reach and foul him, and they get trapped in that sort of no man's land. Well, if he can't create separation, then it becomes a lot tougher. Like Cat blocked the jumper of his tonight. It should, in theory, be pretty impossible for his jumpers to get blocked. So that's going to be some tough sledding for at least a little bit. And I do think he also noted when we were talking to him, he still feels this year that a big part of his job, maybe bigger than in the past, is more setting up the other guys, like being more impactful as a screener, and like not necessarily like letting the game come to him to some degree. That's a nice thing to say on paper, but ultimately they need this guy to be
Yeah.
much closer to MVP level Joe, and he's just not that yet.
That stuff was pretty good. I thought his screening and playmaking actually looked good. I thought his chemistry with McCain. I mean, they had the one possession they kind of
Unbelievable.
They got to like the fourth and fifth action. Now, like you said, the downside of that is at some point in the past, he would have just drove right at the guy, whether he would have went by him or he would have used his strength to pull him. So, yeah, so that is where we are at tonight. I guess before we get to Roy, what did you make of PG tonight? So I thought that was obviously the best he looked. Some of the dribble moves, some of the shots he made. I thought Nick Nurse, as soon as he got better players, he started to run better plays, which is good. But he also had some like crazy turnovers, like that just completely mess with them. I guess, what did you make? Did PG talk after the game, and what did you make of the first good Paul George game of the season?
So he did talk, and Derek and I mistakenly were like, oh, Joe might talk soon. So we lingered to deal with that. And by the time that was over, not only did Joel not talk, but Jared McCain then went and talked and sat through that presser. And Joel was still in the shower when Jared McCain's presser was done. So I missed PG's, dissection of the game. In terms of what I saw out there, I think the passing went both ways to some degree. I think on the one hand, one thing that Derek and I were talking about on press row, one thing I have really liked from him, he's hitting that skip pass from the middle of the floor a lot, like hitting the weak side corner shooter and putting teams in rotations like that. That's something that he's doing more consistently already than anybody on their team in recent memory. And that's a good thing, right? They're going to need that. Certainly the shooting was great. And I think honestly, the most impressive thing, he was just beating up Mikal Bridges in this game. Like Mikal really had nothing to throw at him. And I think given where they're at in their respective careers, the fact that he was able to get by him pretty consistently, that was a big deal. But yeah, I mean, I think not only him, I think you just see the lack of true playmakers on this team, right? Like there are going to be stretches for this team where you're playing through Paul, you're playing through Joel, and they're just going to make bad plays and throw the ball away, and you're going to be scratching your head like, what the hell was that guy thinking? And I think it's just, it's the collective lack of like high end passing talent. It's really crazy that honestly Lowry might still be the best passer on the team. Unfortunately, he can't move, so he can't really leverage that, right? If you can't get to the paint, the guy actually only shot he hit tonight was a layup, ironically, but if he can't create shots, it then becomes like you really just are going to have to rely on a lot of great interchanges between Joel and Tyrese, Joel and Paul, and some individual brilliance, because this is not a team that's going to carve you open as passers. It's going to be a lot of, I will say that might be something, not the passing, but Jared might help open things up, right? Because the movement and the relocation and the unpredictability, that might help you get away with maybe not having as creative of playmakers. But whether it's Paul or anybody else, I think that is a pretty big concern at this point.
Well, Kyle, let's talk about Jared for a second. There's obviously a lot of excitement based on what we saw or what we've seen over the past week or so. Where does he fit in this rotation once everybody's healthy?
I mean, I think we need to frame it more as like, how do the other guys toward the back of the rotation maybe fit around him? And, how do you engineer more minutes for him? Because I think, and we've been talking about the battles that he's in, right? It's like he's fighting with Eric Gordon, he's fighting with Kyle Lowry, and like these guys who are established vets. Well, the reason you play vets is because you want stability, you want experience, and he's brought a level of stability, right? Like his shooting is now, he's shot after a tough start like 40% from three since then. And I think the intangibles, the competitiveness, all that, Nick Nurse is looking at him and saying, you can play 30 minutes, right? Like he's given you enough with the toughness and the off the dribble stuff and everything else that the coach has said, I'm willing to let you play through some stuff. And Jared actually said after the game, that's been hugely helpful for him as he tries to get up to speed on defense, because there are some coaches that would say, oh, you make a couple mistakes, you're out of there, right? Like we've seen coaches treat young guys like that, Doc Rivers. And so I think, frankly, he should basically have a penciled in, let's say 20 minutes a game every night right now. Like you get him at least 10 minutes each half. And then you kind of see, where is he at? Where's the team at? What are their needs at any given time? I think at minimum, the minutes where Joel is kind of that lone star, Jared has to play every one of those. You have to lean into that, the DHO, the 2-man game that, as you pointed out already, that's already Joel doesn't even have to play with a guy to be able to do that, right? He's played with so many players in those actions that as long as you have a similar skill set, he's going to lift you up. And McCain was getting like 5 or 6 feet of separation on almost every screen there. So I think he should have a nailed on role. And it's really just about how much does that grow each game? Because I mean, he's been really good to the point that I'm remembering Rich, we're sitting there on draft night like, oh, why didn't you take Connect? And he can't play with this guy. I think the flexibility he's shown already, you got to think about the preconceived notions you have about maybe who you play him with and what kind of lineups you use him in.
I agree. And it's funny, the team is 2-8 right now. Obviously there's not a lot going right, but I do think there is like real reason to be excited about this kid. I was not expecting anything near what he's doing. I mean, he blew by Bridges and Anunoby on different plays tonight. Like just made them like got a ton of space on those guys. So that's been impressive. Kyle, last thing, because there's really not a lot of other positive things to talk about, but I thought I agreed with the point you made saying that you can see at least the potential for this to be a very good defensive team down the line, right? When they get everybody on the same page. I agree with you. I mean, Nick shot 49%, 29% for three. Like that's a really good offensive team. Like a team is really freaking hard to guard. What did you see tonight from them specifically that kind of gave you that viewpoint?
Well, so one, I think as we talked about, Joel moving as well as he did defensively, that was one of the big outstanding questions, right? If he was moving around like he did most of the Olympics, you have to reassess like, okay, how good can their defense be? Because that version of Joel simply was not moving around well enough to prop up the team and, get them from where they've been at to, closer to an elite level. But I think since you saw PG come back, I think him and Caleb specifically, the interchanging that they can do, like their instincts as off-ball guys, just their activity with their hands and their wingspan and passing lanes. I think they had like 7 combined steals between the two of them tonight, and they had 6 combined steals in the previous game. Like these guys are constantly turning teams over. And look, it's not always going to be pretty, right? Sometimes you're going to play aggressive. You're going to try to play up on guys. And we saw a moment in the fourth quarter tonight where Brunson goes by Caleb, gets a layup, whatever. But by and large, like Brunson sucked for a lot of that game. And a lot of that is to the credit of Caleb Martin, Paul George, and Kelly Oubre. Like the ability to just kind of pass off assignments and, hey, you take 4 minutes on this guy. You take 4 minutes on this guy. That is a really, really valuable thing. And I'm down on Kelly pretty large right now after his start to the season. Like I think a lot of the things that popped last year have not shown up, and it's just been a lot of bad shooting and bad decision making. But I think the ability to kind of always have a couple of athletic wings on the floor, and Nick Nurse empowering these guys to say, look, I don't want you to gamble, but I'm okay with you playing aggressive and trusting your ability to turn teams over. So I think when you have that, when you can get those runouts, and then if all goes wrong, you have Joel Embiid protecting the rim, I think you have the recipe for a really high level defense. And on top of that, I saw a lot of really good weak side help tonight at the rim.
Yeah.
Block for Kelly Oubre, believe there was a block for Caleb Martin, maybe one for Paul George, or maybe just a nice contest or whatever. But when you see all of that and you see like, oh, there are possessions where these guys just aren't in sync yet, I think if you can get full games or close to full games of that, they're going to be a pretty scary group to deal with on defense.
Definitely some good scrambling tonight, even when they were out of rotation too. That was also Caleb Martin when he had that pick 6 at the end of the first quarter. That was just a great read. Jalen trying to get that ball down. So, all right, Kyle, that's about it. Get some sleep. We'll see you tomorrow. Best team in the league is coming into Philadelphia. No idea if the Sixers' top 2 guys play. The doubt button. Let's press it again. Yeah. And anyway, get some sleep, man.
Fingers crossed for at least one of them to play. Otherwise, it's going to be a bloodbath. See you, fellas. Get home safe.
Nice. See you,
Thanks,
man.
Kyle.
All right, Roy. I think we're about done here.
I think so. Again, like it was a loss. It's never a good thing to have a loss, but there are some positives to take out of it. Obviously Jared McCain, obviously Paul George. If Joel Embiid plays tomorrow, are they going to, be the minutes restriction? Are we done with the minutes restriction theory if he plays tomorrow? Because again, like they're just going to throw everything out the window if he plays tomorrow, right? If he says I'm not going to play back-to-backs, and he plays back-to-backs.
PG got 32 minutes tonight. That's pretty close to where you're going to want him in the
right. But I'm talking
season.
about Joel Embiid though. It's like is Joel Embiid still going to be by it because with this minutes restriction, or we're like, you know what, he's just going to do whatever he wants to do.
I mean, some of
this point,
some of it too, because like during the doc years, like even when he was out of shape, he was like, "We're still just going to play you a ton because that's the best way to get
we need to
to get you going." So I don't know. I think this is probably a different animal here because he's also dealing a knee that, as Kyle said, relaying his comments that he just doesn't fully trust yet at this point.
Right.
Hopefully that gets better. It would be nice for those guys to play. And I guess the one thing I would leave everybody with is, I'm just not going to make any sweeping pronouncements on that game. Like right now, they're not a very good team. I understand Joel has worked his way into the season in a way that few players have. Like he's looked terrible to start the year, and people after the first game of the year always it's like the snap judgment after week 1 of the NFL.
Oh, sure.
But it's week 1. It's the first game of the NBA. I mean, that's Joel Embiid's first game, and it wasn't great. But we will be here regardless of how it goes, and hopefully can flesh out some better opinions as we see more of Joel and PG, and hopefully the Sixers righting the ship. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight and hope that you come back. Devon and I will be in the saddle tomorrow night as the 12-0 Cleveland Cavaliers come to Philadelphia. I'd like to thank Roy for helping us out tonight. You will see Roy a bunch on our channels tonight, or on our channel this season. Thank you for joining, and have a good night, everybody.
We all silly like the mayor.